DJing, from the good, the horrible, and everything else in between. What makes a good DJ? What makes a bad DJ? Is DJing even hard? Is it even easy? Well, as someone who's never DJ'd, I wanted to find out. So I challenged myself to DJing every day for 50 days. I've learned instruments, I've learned software, I've learned synthesizer programming, but I've never learned how to DJ. And what better way than to just plunge into it and try it every single day for 50 days and see how hard or easy it really is. I've been doing music, making my own music, since I was around 13 years old. And I also grew up going to lots and lots of concerts and shows and festivals. And, in my early years as a musician and being really into music, being a big music snob, the general consensus towards DJs was a negative one. Lots of rock and roll boomers did not like DJs. They did not see them as legitimate.
Did these guys come up, get their Macintosh computers out and hire DJ Fuckhead and get a drum and go, okay, you can leave, they sample it. Fuckhead, DJ Fuckhead, I know talent, I play other people's records.
I didn't really know how I felt. I didn't really care. I was too busy focused on guitar and music and trying not to suck. Later on in life, around my late teens, I got introduced to raves and underground events, and the DJ is the cornerstone of these events. It's a make or break situation, just like, a band performing well on a certain night is kind of essential to you having a good experience when you're seeing them live. A DJ curates the vibe, he curates the energy, and if the DJ is mediocre, it can kind of suck. So that led me to being interested in the process. Like, how do these guys do this? How does this even work? The events I went to early on were psytrance events, which if you've listened to psytrance, it all kind of blends together, especially the modern stuff. But the years go on and I broaden my horizons to rave music. I get into house, techno, and it led me to the 2000s era of progressive house that I like quite a lot. Stuff like John Digweed, just any general global underground stuff. I got really into 90s electronic music, 90s DJ sets, 2000s DJing stuff, and this is what really kick-started my inspiration to start DJing for whatever reason. So that led to me getting a deck and deciding to do this whole challenge. So when I got my shitty little deck, I was kind of just figuring it out as I went. I knew that I had to play a song and somehow get it to the next song, one way or the other. That was kind of my caveman philosophy going into this. After I gathered all my tracks, I did a couple test runs before streaming, and it was rough for sure. I definitely felt antsy. I felt eager to transition, even though, obviously, you probably shouldn't transition quick for every single song. Now, there were tons of mistakes, tons of really bad drops, tons of really bad blends, even songs that were in the same BPM, clicking. I mean, I'm sure I'll put up some examples here. My worst mistake was probably dropping a track into the wrong deck. That was bad. Another couple bad mistakes was just learning how to use the wheel. I forget what you call it. The deck wheel to get a song aligned rather than using the sync button. I learned that that is the true way to sync tracks and get them aligned with each other, and it works a lot better than the sync button. I wasn't really using the sync button a lot because, let me tell you something, The sync button already was an infamous villain amongst professional DJs who DJ via skill and all this. The sync button is very controversial. A lot of people say it's a crutch, that you shouldn't use it. Throughout my mixing in the 50 days, there were small instances where I used it, but I did notice it didn't always work the way people think it does. Now, there are certain songs when I was doing down-tempo sets where the sync button would at least help get it close to aligned, but I would still have to use the wheel to get it really there where I could hear that it was matching properly. But by 15 days, I had done a lot, and I had learned how to organize my files, organize all the songs and the genres, and even making little lists of what stuff goes together and how I can interchange it all and mix and match. It was becoming a lot of fun, and I could definitely start to see where the creativity comes in, where the ears come in, and where the general musical knowledge has to come in. It was starting to make a lot more sense to me that you can pick and choose how hard or easy you make this whole process. Now, around day 20, I got a text from a friend of mine. His birthday party was coming up, and it was going to be a big, big birthday party at a big house in the Valley of California. If you know the Valley, you know Southern California. It's where I reside. He texts me and he says, "Do you know any DJs that I can hire for my birthday?" Now, I knew a couple, but I knew they were going to charge him a lot. So I asked him, "How much are you willing to pay?" He goes, "Well, I talked to a couple of them, and they want to charge me $1,000. And I just kind of felt bad for him. I was like, "Well, it's your birthday. I can do it." He goes, "You can do it?" "Sure, I'll do it." In my head, I was like, "Why are you even offering to do this? You barely know what you're doing." But I just had that confidence, I guess. So I got my first gig via this. He's like, "All right, well, this is the date. It's in July or June, somewhere around there. And we're going to do it at my girlfriend's mom's house, which is this big, beautiful property with this giant pool." I was like, "Rad, all right." I didn't charge him much because I'm new. Charged him like a couple $100. And there it was, my first gig. I told him, "Send me your playlist, send me your taste, send me what you want, and I will DJ. Just tell me how many hours it is." He's like, "I want you to DJ for like 3 hours, and then you can come chill with us," because obviously he's my friend. I know all of his friends. So yeah, it was my first gig. I had no interest or even thought that I would get a gig when I started doing this. I thought I was going to be streaming to no one, and only my girlfriend would hear. And then I would review my improvised sets and go over them to see what was bad and what was good and try and fix it. I had no clue that I was going to end up playing for people. So that was a little intimidating, but then he sent me the playlist and I got to practicing. This is where the selflessness of DJing comes in, because he sent me stuff that I really don't care for that much. We're talking about Afro House, modern Ibiza core, 2010s club bangers, Calvin Harris, David Guetta. Was never too keen on this stuff myself. Not a hater of it. You can like what you like. That's totally fine. But I wasn't too into it myself. But it was a good exercise to mixing with intent and passion and, respect to the music, even if you don't like something. And that's an aspect of DJing I know if a professional DJ were to watch my video, he would probably say, "Yeah, that's my whole life, is playing mostly what I don't want to play and playing what the people want to hear." Now, the week of the gig arrives, and we're just going through the details, and my friend's girlfriend's mom doesn't want anything on her grass. She doesn't want her grass to get ruined. So we can't put the DJ setup out on the grass. So their solution to this was to buy an inflatable club. Now, I'm not much of a performing musician. I'm not much of a gigging guy. I kind of hate it, the little I've done of it. But the people who do a lot of it always tell me the first gig is always a nightmare. Something always goes wrong. And they were 100% right. Because not only did they put an inflatable club on the grass, but they couldn't put it directly on the grass because obviously that would ruin the grass as well. So their solution was to put Home Depot plywood underneath the club to protect the grass. Now, if you've ever dealt with plywood, you would know it's not very flat. It's not very flush on the floor. It kind of bends and warps and wobbles. It's plywood. they invited me over to see the bounce house, was what I called it. It's an inflatable club with no bounce house floor. I might have preferred a bounce house floor at this point, because you walk in on it and the plywood is not flush. It pokes up and it moves when you move. So if you try and dance on it, it's super uncomfortable. And one of them sticks up where you could stub your toe and fall. Now this is a party where people are going to be getting very drunk. There's an open bar with bartenders making cocktails. In my head, I'm just like, this is a nightmare. Not to mention, when we got to Bounce House, or the inflatable club, I'm sure I've showed pictures of it by now, it smelled so bad. It smelled like BO when we got it. So when the night of the party came and we set up and we had to, bring a giant extension cord from the house, like, I don't even know how many feet it was, 8 feet more. So we start the gig, I start the music, people are like, oh wait, there's a DJ here? Because obviously there's a big giant inflatable club, they can't tell if there's a DJ here. They just think music's playing. No one can see me, which I didn't mind, honestly, but over time people realized that there was a live DJ, so they'd go inside the little club and they'd have a good time, and I was getting fed cigarettes and drinks and joints. It was great, and obviously a lot of them were my friends, so it was a good time, and everyone had a good time. I did have a classic DJ experience though, which was the drunk guy coming up to you at the end of the night and requesting a song that you don't have because these are all on a USB. The night went on pretty smooth. There was a time when someone tripped on the plywood and the setup hiccuped and the music stopped, but then it just started again. So the DJ gods were with me that evening, and it was a smooth gig, and the only thing I learned from it was keep the music going and don't get fancy if you can't. If you can't get fancy, don't get fancy. So after the gig, it pretty much remained the same as it was before. I just kept streaming, I kept doing sets, I kept getting more songs, different genres, I kept DJing different types of stuff. And I started messing with different things like stems, getting a pop song stem and putting it in a different genre and trying to do a live remix. Just messing with fun stuff like that, and it just kind of went until I was done with 50 days. It was hard towards the end, I'm not gonna lie. There were a lot of sets around the 45-day mark where I felt like I was phoning it in quite a bit because I was pretty burnt out of doing it every single night. And every single night, for the most part, the sets were improvised and there were tons of mistakes, but sometimes I would lock in and I would make something that I actually liked and I would actually want to go listen to. Now, the end of this story isn't a happy one, because towards the end of my journey, my DJ deck started giving out and my computer started freezing. And there are several sets towards the end of the line where there was a lot of stutters, there was a lot of crashes, and that was probably the most discouraging aspect of this whole thing, was just hardware, software limitations, right? My DJ deck's a really crappy one. I'll put it up on screen here, and the volume knob no longer works. So I'm saving up via my real job to get another one and to try and do actual practiced sets to upload onto the internet, and maybe I can gig more. Not really concerned about it. My main hobby is music, creating music, writing music, production, sound design. Those are my favorite things to do. I do enjoy DJing because I love music and I love mixes and I think it's a lot of fun, but I probably won't be continuing that until I can afford a better deck, because obviously not going to buy the same one again because the volume knob shit the bed. But overall, I would say that DJing can be as hard or as easy as you want. There were times where I made it easy for myself to get something done, and there were times where I purposely tried to push the limit and make it harder for myself to try and do something interesting or challenge myself. And then there were times where it was in the middle, where there's hard aspects, there's hard parts of it, but it wasn't always hard. And I feel like, if you were doing vinyl DJing or even CDJs, it would be a little bit more difficult, and you would have to practice more. You would have to know more. There is a lot of benefit starting out when you're using Serato and you're on digital, and it is a lot easier. I understand what the boomers are saying where it is easier than vinyl. I can only imagine how hard spinning on vinyl is, but I don't have the money and I don't have the means, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you're creative. And I feel like that's the bigger key to a good DJ. Who's creative, who has good ears, who knows how to sequence tracks, who knows how to keep energy in a room. I'm not going to pretend like I know how to do all of that, but I think that's where the skills in DJing lie. And I did gain a lot of respect for really good DJs. There are DJs that have 4 fucking decks and they're blending with all of them, and that's incredibly impressive to me. There are aspects of DJing that I think is a little silly. You know, there are DJs that I you know, good for them that they get to gig and they make lots of money, but I'm not impressed by them. And maybe it's a matter of musical taste, like selection, or maybe it's a matter of they're kind of just phoning it in, paint by numbers. Here's your drop, here's your break, here's your open-ended melodic section. I don't know. You could probably make DJing a lot harder, and it probably is for the ones that I like. You know, all the DJs I like, it's probably way harder for them. But that's why they're the professionals, right? Anyways, thanks for watching. Go check out my music. And yeah, maybe I'll make another video if people want me to. All right, bye.